When rancher Cole Maddox won the deed to an abandoned frontier cabin for only 12 cents at a dusty county auction, he figured he'd stumbled into the luckiest bargain of his life, a forgotten shack he could turn into a storage shed for winter feed. But the moment he pushed open the warped door, his breath hitched as he froze in the lantern light, because hanging from thick rawhide ropes inside was a towering young Apache woman, easily over 7 feet tall, her wrists bound above her head, her feet barely touching the dirt floor, and her head drooping beneath tangled black hair streaked with dust and dried blood. And Cole felt a chill crawl up his spine, not from fear, but from the realization that someone had left her to die in this lonely place where no one would ever find her. At first he thought she might already be gone, limp and silent, but then her shoulders twitched, and she inhaled with a broken, ragged gasp, her eyes fluttering open to reveal a pair of fierce, amber-colored eyes that stared at him not with terror, but with the wild, unbroken strength of someone who had survived far worse than ropes and darkness. Cole, a man who had faced his share of outlaws, blizzards, and stampedes, felt the weight of her suffering like a stone in his chest as he stepped inside, speaking softly, "Easy now. I'm not here to hurt you," and he reached up to cut the bindings, but she jerked away instinctively, her muscles tightening like coiled steel, even though she was clearly too exhausted to fight. He noticed she had been beaten. Long bruises along her arms, cuts across her side, and rope burns digging deep into her wrists, and he wondered with rising anger who could have done such cruelty to someone defenseless, someone who looked barely older than 20. When he finally cut the ropes, she collapsed into his arms with a surprising weight that nearly brought him to his knees, and he gently lowered her to the floor, wrapping his coat around her trembling body as she stared at him in confusion, clearly prepared to die but not prepared to be saved. Cole carried her out into the sunlight, whispering steady reassurances, placing her on his saddle, and riding hard back to his ranch before anyone could see them, knowing the wrong pair of eyes might twist the story into something deadly for both of them. At the ranch house, he set her carefully on his bed, lit a fire, and heated water while trying to piece together the mystery. Why was she so large, stronger than any woman, or man, he had ever seen? Why had she been left to die alone? And how had she survived long enough for him to find her? When she finally woke again, she tried to sit up but winced in pain, and Cole knelt beside her, offering water, which she took in shaking hands, drinking like someone who hadn't tasted life in days. She studied him in silence, her gaze sharp but uncertain, before she whispered in a low, melodic voice, "Why, help me." Cole hesitated, unsure how to explain something so simple. Because no one deserved to suffer like that, because he couldn't ride away from someone dying, because he had seen something in her eyes that reminded him of himself, fighting, surviving, refusing to break. And instead he simply said, "Because you deserved saving." She watched him, trying to decide if he meant it, and then finally nodded with a quiet acceptance that humbled him more than any words could. Over the next 2 days, she healed slowly, and Cole was astonished at her resilience. Even with her wounds, she moved with the power and grace of someone born to the wild, someone carved from mountain stone, and as she spoke more, he learned her name, Tala, and that she came from a remote band that kept to the high canyons far from white settlements. But she was not just any member. Tala was a rare one among her people, born taller and stronger than the rest, a gift they believed came from ancient spirits, though such gifts often came with burdens. She had been taken while gathering clay near the river, ambushed by men who hoped to sell her strength, her size, her rarity to some traveling show or mining company, but when she fought back, they punished her by stringing her up inside the cabin to break her spirit before selling her off. Hearing her story stirred a storm inside Cole, anger that men could be so cruel, admiration at her courage, and a burning determination that no one would ever touch her like that again as long as he breathed. On the third night, when she was strong enough to stand, the men who had once captured her returned, not knowing Cole had bought the cabin, not knowing she had been rescued, and they came swaggering onto his land, laughing about how much money they'd get once the giant girl was ready to travel. Cole stepped outside, one man against 3, but he stood tall, rifle in hand, and Tala appeared behind him, towering above him like a storm-given flesh, her hair loose, her shoulders squared, her presence so fierce that the men stumbled backward in shock, realizing she was free, realizing they'd lost their prize. They reached for their guns, but Tala moved with lightning speed, knocking one to the ground with a single sweeping arm while Cole disarmed the second, and the third turned and fled, too terrified to face the two of them together. When it was over, Tala stood breathing hard, her hair wild in the wind, and Cole met her gaze with calm certainty, telling her, "You're safe now, as long as you want to stay." The moonlight washed over her face, softening the fierce lines, and she stepped closer, lowering her head so her eyes met his, and for the first time since he found her hanging in the darkness, she smiled, a quiet, grateful curve of her lips that made Cole feel like he'd been given something priceless. She placed her large hand gently over his heart, whispering, "You gave me back my life, now I will help protect yours." And from that night forward, the lonely rancher and the giant Apache girl formed a bond deeper than the wild frontier itself, two souls rescued in different ways. He had saved her from death, and she had saved him from a life of solitude, and together they rebuilt not just the cabin that had once been her prison, but a future carved from trust, strength, and a connection neither had expected to find. And if you want more powerful stories like this, full of emotion, courage, and twists that keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because every new tale will take you somewhere unforgettable.